Okay, I think we're live. What's up, everybody? Hope everybody's doing good. If you guys can hear me, go ahead and let me know because I got a new microphone cable. So I just want to make sure you guys can hear me in the chat. So give a sec to make sure you guys can hear me, and then we'll get started. Hey. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let's see. You hear me fine. Okay, good. All right. So what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? So we are live, and by my side is Dr. Craig Blomberg. He's a distinguished professor of the New Testament at Denver Seminary. He's been here since 1986, right? That's right, yeah. And he's had over 150 peer-reviewed journals. I mean, he's pretty top-notch. It's hard to think of somebody who's kind of better in this field, in my personal opinion. So it's good to be here with him. And what we're doing today is we're filming for the documentary. But I wanted to give you guys just a quick, kind of like a quick short live stream to kind of ask him a couple questions, just so we can do that while we're setting up. The camera guy's setting up a bunch of stuff. So anyways, so yeah, throw your questions in the chat, and then we'll just get right to it, guys. Cool. All right, let's see. So let's talk about it again. So while we're kind of waiting here, what's the last book that you put out?
The last book that I put out is a book that was the outgrowth of a debate on the resurrection called Resurrection, Faith or Fact, published by Pitchstone Press out of Durham, North Carolina. And I co-wrote it with a man by the name of Carl Stecker. And then we had who was an atheist, and then we had two commentators, Richard Carrier, a well-known atheist, and Peter Williams, a well-known British evangelical, who threw in their 2 cents worth.
Nice. I actually read a lot of Peter Williams more recently because I just did a series on slavery. So he has a lot of good stuff for kind of the text too when it comes to slavery. So if you guys are kind of curious too, that's one of the people who I was getting information from as well for in preparation for the slavery series that we just did. So good. Okay, so there's questions from Isaiah Armstrong. It says, what do you think of Bart Ehrman and his books, and how would you respond to his claims against the reliability of the Gospels as eyewitness testimony? That sounds like a big question, but
it is. Yeah. Like any scholar who has written a lot, it's hard to generalize. Some of the things that Bart has written are outstanding. He wrote a book debunking the people who said Jesus never existed. It's extremely well done. He wrote a book on the so-called Gospel of Judas that was rediscovered 10 years or so ago. That's very well done. What he's probably best known for are some more skeptical works. And that's where he and I would have some significant disagreements. He uses the image of a child's game of telephone to talk about the oral tradition, the first generation of Christianity. And I would say you couldn't have picked a less relevant analogy because things were memorized or all but memorized. They were done in public. There was the opportunity for public correction. These were things that Jesus' disciples had been talking about already for 3 years, all over the place in hundreds of villages in Israel. When Jesus sent them out to replicate his ministry, they would have rehearsed the story about his life and teachings many, many times. And so I think a good case can be made for their reliability.
Good. And we'll be talking more about that too in the documentary, guys, too. So these kind of be like just real kind of quick kind of responses to some of it, because a lot of this stuff is a lot to unpack too, because you have to kind of understand the context, and ancient history is going to be different than how we'll kind of think of like stuff in the culture today. So that's something to keep in mind, but we'll unpack more in the documentary. So you guys will see it there. There's another question, Stickman Sam, I saw. Stickman Sam, what's up, man? Good to see you. He says, how would you respond to the objection of the lack of contemporary accounts of Jesus? That's another one that's kind of similar, right?
Sure. You wouldn't expect any contemporary accounts because news didn't spread. You would expect accounts after Jesus' lifetime, and what we do get is certainly enough to sketch the main contours of his life, but then also we have to look and say, what exists? I sometimes see these websites that talk about a dozen writers of the roughly the time of Christ and no reference to Jesus. Why not? And they're all Greeks and Romans, and they're all writing in Greece and Rome, and they're not saying a word about anything that happened in Israel. The only existing accounts we have about anything in Israel from the first century are the writings of Josephus, and he does refer to Jesus. And so, yeah, it's like you say, you have to put things in context.
That's good. Good. Okay, cool. Super chat from Nate. Nate, appreciate it, man. Good to see you. Says, how many nuns would a nunchuck chuck if a nunchuck could chuck nuns? That's a good one. About 5?
Maybe none.
Maybe none. All right. This question is from Epic Christ. It says, am I at a library? No, this is Dr. Blomberg's office. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you are in a library. It's my library.
Yeah, it's his library. I'll try to show you a little bit. The walls here are books, and then even over that way, books, and more books. Finally, a guy that has more books than me, huh?
And if you think I've read every word in every one of them, I've got some land in Florida I'd like to sell you.
All right, a couple more quick questions. So let's see. You guys too, tag my name in it too, so it pops up for me. Tag what do you mean? So that if you have a question, so that way my eye will go that faster. All right, let's see here. He says, Dr. Craig, how many books? Have you counted them all? Or do you have better things to do?
Couple thousand, probably.
Couple thousand?
But no, I haven't.
Gotcha. Cool. What about some other books too, like, by the way, because I want to make sure, because I've read a few of your books, and I want to make sure that other people are aware of what you have. And, so yeah, go ahead and explain.
I have done several works on the reliability of Scripture, one on historical reliability of the Gospels, one focusing just on John's Gospel, and one that broadens out to the entire New Testament. I have done several things on interpreting the parables, preaching the parables. I have done 3 biblical commentaries, one on Matthew, one on 1 Corinthians, one on James. I've done a couple of textbooks that survey the New Testament, the Gospels, and the life of Jesus in one, and Acts through the book of Revelation in another. More shorter, specialized works on money matters, stewardship, material possessions. I did a Mormon evangelical dialogue book. That's probably enough to mention.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, and when you did your book on the historical reliability of the Gospels, the first one, that was relatively new then, huh? I mean, that was kind of a pioneer. It seems like that's
1987. One of my profs at Trinity, Grant Osborne, who's now with the Lord, saw it as sort of defining the start of a new period, which, of course, nobody knows when it happens unless other people follow suit.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Let's see. Okay, a few questions here. Yeah, just a few more questions, guys, and then we'll be all set up, and we're going to start filming the documentary. But says, was the Gospel of John written by the Johannine community or just one guy?
Or maybe both. It seems like the majority was written by the man called the beloved disciple that early church tradition says was the Apostle John. But then in the last 2 verses, you get reference to him, and it says, we know that his testimony is true. Well, who's the we? And so it could be that his disciples came along after his death and put sort of their imprimatur or stamp of approval, and maybe they're the ones who went through and referred to the disciple whom Jesus loved. That would be kind of a strange way to refer to yourself. But I think the bulk of it comes from the Apostle John. Yeah.
Cool. Because I'd refer to myself that way, but
Well, you're special.
That is true.
This John is the disciple.
That's right. Okay, and Epic Christ. Oh yeah, another question says, sorry for spamming the question, but is there any evidence for the empty tomb? That would actually, there's a lot on that, and that would probably take a while to get through. Yeah, but yes, there is.
Check out the new book that we just referred to on resurrection, faith or fact.
Resurrection, faith or fact. Check that out. Okay, Elizabeth, what's up? Elizabeth's a Patreon and a little supporter, so appreciate it. Says, which book has Dr. Craig written? Would he recommend over the others to read?
Let's see, which one has sold the least? No, it all depends on what you're interested in. I mentioned several very diverse areas, but the one that has been most widely used and often as textbook is Jesus and the Gospels, an introduction and survey. So it might be a great place to start.
Cool. All right. And 2 more questions, guys, and then we're done. You have anything else to add to that? Or?
No.
Okay, cool. All right, 2 more questions. So we'll take Fernando. Sanchez says, actually, hold on. I'm sorry. It was the one right before. Sorry, Fernando. I was reading the one right before. Lord Help Us Tampa says, can you explain Acts 5:30 to me?
So, you told me I didn't need a Bible in front of me. No. What does Acts 5:30 say?
Yeah, I don't know what Acts 5:30
There's one right there, that black bound. There are some verses that you could have mentioned, and I would have known immediately what you were talking about. The God of our ancestors raised Jesus from the dead, whom you killed by hanging him on a cross. Not sure what the question is, but if it's the hanging, crucifixion was already so prevalent in the Roman Empire that Jewish rabbis had understood that arms outstretched and affixed to a cross was similar enough to the posture of a hanged person that the same principles could apply, such as Deuteronomy 21:23 that says that kind of person was cursed by God. Certainly not type person you'd want for your Messiah, unless, as the Apostle Paul would later explain, he was cursed not for his sins, but for yours and mine and the sins of the world.
Good. All right. And the last question is going to be for Fernando, because I accidentally got your hopes up earlier. So says, according to your studies, it sounds like a controversial one. So,
good.
Don't try to get, according to your studies, is it possible to repent of sins after death? Is some of the doubt in the New Testament suggest Judas' condemnation of salvation?
Yeah, that is an issue that has divided Catholics and Protestants historically. The whole idea of purgatory, it's divided Mormons and evangelicals historically. 1 Peter 3, 18-22 is a challenging passage. What is meant when Christ went and preached to the spirits in prison? Who were they? Was he preaching an opportunity for salvation? It seems like the short answer is no, there isn't any clear, unambiguous text. Hebrews 9:22 will say it's appointed for someone to die once and then comes judgment. So if it turns out that people get another chance, I'm not going to be upset. That'll be wonderful, but I'm not counting on it.
Cool. Okay, so you guys, we're going to have to wrap up. Sorry for all the other people that submitted the comments and the questions, but we got to hurry up and start filming because we're on the clock. So thank you guys for joining us, and thank you, Dr. Blomberg,
for John
doing it live. And anything else you want to say to them?
Thank you for participating.
And what do you mean?
And what do you mean?
All right, see you guys.